warm welcome to Seeing Through Glass, and welcome to my 2 cars. I'm not quite sure how this is a thing, but you join me inside my manual Ferrari 360 Modena, being followed by my Porsche 718 Cayman S. I don't quite know how this has all happened, and in fact, I've seen quite a few questions and comments from you guys asking, how has this happened? So in today's video, I want to talk about how I've been able to afford this Ferrari and that Porsche. Before we get into the finer details, one thing I do want to say is that I truly believe you won't be able to afford any of the things you want to buy in this world without hard work. And I know that maybe hearing a YouTuber talk about hard work might seem like a bit of a joke, so I'm not going to try and lecture you on the fact that I'm working harder than I've ever worked in my life to run this channel. But what I'm trying to say is that even in an age of Bitcoin, which I invested £200 in the other day, and endless sort of, financing opportunities and leasing and deals and social media, you can't get away with just kicking back and looking to take advantage of life. You've still got to work incredibly hard to buy the nice things. That's at least my belief. Before I got into YouTube, I used to work in the entertainment industry for around 8 years. I was kind of mainly in PR, but I was earning a sort of average salary, like 25 or 30,000 pounds a year. But I used to bust a gut, work my ass off, so that at the end of the month, when I got my paycheck, I knew I deserved it, but I also knew I could reward myself, and that would always be in cars. I used to spend every spare penny and cent I had on cars, because work hard, buy cars. That was my methodology. Earlier this year, I made a video talking about car financing. It was just after I bought the McLaren 540C, and I explained how car financing had enabled me to get into cars that I traditionally wouldn't have been able to buy as a cash buyer. And that really harks back to my days in PR, when earning 25 or 30,000 pounds, I couldn't afford the car that I really wanted, which was an Audi TTS. Then someone explained car financing to me, and with a small deposit and a small amount of money per month, which at the time to me felt like a huge deposit and a huge amount of money per month, I was able to get in that car, and I had it for 2.5 years and I loved it. But if anything had ever gone wrong with my job, if I'd been fired, if the company had folded, if I'd been demoted, I would have been seriously screwed, because as I say, at the time, it was all I could afford. So I had to keep working my ass off to ensure that I could afford the monthly payments. And I do feel that is very, very important. Today, luckily, the heroes from Magnitude Finance, the guys who have financed my last 5 cars. I've financed 6 cars in total. The first one was with Audi, the Audi TTS. The last 5 have been with Magnitude. They've agreed to come down and help me explain the pros and the cons to the car financing world, all the different products available, what you should look out for, and talk through some example figures. So let's go find Tim from Magnitude and get into all the information about car financing. Okie dokie, welcome to the 718 Cayman S, and welcome to Tim from Magnitude.
Hello.
After all of our years now of working together, you're now finally on the channel.
Dreaded.
Yes. I've bullied you into it. Thank you so much for coming along. As I mentioned, specifically Tim, but Magnitude themselves have financed, I think it's 5 cars, isn't it? We've done together
in a row.
I literally email Tim probably once a week saying, "Oh, I've just found this Enzo. What would the finance figures be on it?"
We've tried.
You have, amazingly, you always reply with figures, which I absolutely love. But before we get into me and my story and my examples, can you help me give a bit of an overview of car financing in general?
Yeah, I think what we do at Magnitude is look at things a little bit differently. We are a broker, so we've got lots of different lenders on the panel. You've seen different documentation that you've signed over those agreements. The key really is making sure the customer's in the right product for them, sure, and looking to the future, what cars their plans are.
It is different to leasing, isn't it? Because I know when I made the video at the beginning of this year, people were getting a bit confused between leasing and financing and the various financing products.
It is, yes, yeah. You've got contract hire and leasing tends to be done by a lot of companies for fleet purchases.
Okay.
Whereas what we do, it's a little bit more bespoke, because with a lease you are normally fixed in for the full term of the agreement again.
It's very hard to get out, isn't it?
It's very hard to get out. You never actually own the car, although some people will say you don't own the car because the banks own it.
Yeah,
just like your house.
Yeah, absolutely. To clarify that, yes, I saw those comments as well, that, you know, by financing, I'm not the owner. But like Tim just said, most people don't own their houses these days with mortgages. I don't own my phone because of the way that phone contracts work, but my name is on the V5 document, and in essence, I own this car apart from I'm borrowing the money to buy it. Whilst leasing, you're literally renting the car.
It's rented.
It's an extended rent.
It is short-term rental, maybe when you go away on holiday and you rent a car. It's similar kind of ethos to that,
okay.
But normally over a longer term, and you pay a daily rate or a monthly rate, depending how long you're going to be keeping the car for.
Sure, so slightly different. The thing is, for me, I've gone down the financing route because, as I said at the beginning, it's allowed me to get into cars that I probably couldn't have afforded being a cash buyer. But as time has gone on, it's also been a way of managing my money a little better, because weirdly, my cars are they are assets to me now with this YouTube game. So it's just managing my money better. But who traditionally are your customers? Are they like me, people who are just trying to stretch to buy the best cars they can? Are they wealthy? Are they? I mean,
I think it's a good combination. We'll look at anybody looking at buying a car, really. I think going onto our website, the minimum advance you can get is £20,000, the borrowing amount. We will look at below that for the right kind of customer, but then we'll go right up to Pagani's
really?
£1 million upwards.
No way. Okay, well, actually, having said that, I say no way, but I don't think this was a real deal. But I did see on your website the other day you did a theoretical finance deal for a McLaren F1, which was like my favourite thing ever. Which I don't know if you can remember the figures, but it was like £4 million in and 60 grand a month or something.
It was, yeah, a big residual at the back end, and yeah, a bit of a pull on the figures. But in the real world, we can do that. So whether you're spending £10,000 or £10 million, we can put a quotation together very, very quickly. And give you an idea.
I think that's another misconception about financing, because of the stigma around it, whether it's on social media or just in general life. People always go a little bit, I don't finance. But am I right in understanding that the majority of sort of high-priced cars or high net worth individuals do finance? Like a lot of these Ferraris, 918s, P1 stuff are bought through finance these days.
They are, yeah. I think it's a generation thing as well. Okay. The older generation will probably frown on finance a little bit more.
Sure.
But you've mentioned your mobile phone. People just finance most things these days.
Yeah. So, it's a weird one, because it's an easy product to buy these days, but we can't hide from the fact that there's interest included. It is expensive. It's not like, okay, well, cool, well, you can just finance and that's a way to avoid paying. Sometimes it's not the right way to go, right? Yeah. And what are the sort of cons? What are the things to watch out for or avoid with financing? Well, there must be some.
People always say to me, what's the cheapest way to finance a car? Well, pay outright for it. Pay cash.
Was that me? Was that a conversation we had? Tim, I need lower monthly figures.
It wasn't until I said you had to pay outright for it.
Yes. Then I was like, okay, let's go back to the drawing board.
I think the other thing to realise there is, though, that a lot of these successful business people that we're dealing with, they have the money in the bank or in the business, and they can pay for it outright. Can they make that money work harder for them?
Sure.
They're getting little return in the bank, so people have not got so much on deposits anymore. But from most people's point of view, you're fortunate you use the cars for business. A lot of the cars are hobbies, weekend cars.
Sure.
And people want to finance them, because rather than taking £100,000 or £200,000 out of the bank, they can reinvest that in their business, which is where they make money, and make a much greater return than the rates that we charge.
Absolutely. No, and that's the kind of aspect that I've got to now. Now that's why I'm looking to do financing. But at the beginning, it was just, I can have a
cheapest
TTS, cheapest chips. And I remember some of our initial conversations, like beating you up on monthly price. I just wanted that lowest monthly figure because I was maxing out what I could afford. But the 540C is actually a great example where you were incredibly helpful, because we were hammering down the price still, negotiating the price of the car, and we agreed a monthly figure. I then got a couple grand more off the car or whatever, and you said, Sam, let's keep the same monthly figure. quicker, because when you come to sell, because you knew me and you knew I would come to sell, it will help you on the other end. And that meant that when I did sell, I didn't come out in negative equity, which is the thing that terrifies, I think, everyone in terms of financing. So by paying a little bit more each month, I was much better off at the other end.
It's a hard conversation to have.
It was. I didn't know.
Telling you to pay more per month sounds crazy.
Yeah, I was like, what are you talking about, Tim?
But we got you into the right product, which, as I said, enabled you to come out to the McLaren for easier in 9 months' time, without being stung for penalties that you'd then have to pay towards. We find with a lot of our customers, we'll try and educate them on day one.
Sure.
So when they go into a car, it's easy to part with money when you're buying a car. When you're coming out of it, and we ask for £10,000 just to get out of the agreement.
Yeah, that's a horrible scenario.
People don't like us that much.
No. And the 4C was definitely one of those. That was the first time we worked together, and I was literally just looking to get into that as cheaply as I could.
Yep.
And it really bit me in the bum, because as an idiotic YouTuber, 6 months later, I was like, time to change. And it was silly. It was way too soon. The deal wasn't a great deal, because I had been so harsh and hammering you guys on minimal payments in and per month. And it meant I came out owing £5,000 to just clear the finance.
Yep.
So it was a very expensive,
Valuable lesson,
a really valuable lesson.
on a cheaper car.
On a cheaper car, for sure. If you look now in comparison to the most recent cars, that was relatively affordable. But can we just tie it into these two cars that I'm in right now? So we're in the 718 Cayman-S, and at the start of the video at the 360. For those people who are watching going, how are you affording, how is this possible that you've gone from, a 540C in a Bath to a Ferrari and a Porsche? It all depends on the specific car, right? On the structure of the deal and predicted future values and money you're putting in. For example, I put more money into the 540C as a deposit than I did to the Porsche.
Yep.
But that affects the monthly payment. So it's all different deals and structures, right?
And again, the residuals at the final residuals. But what we tend to do, we offer like a concierge service, we call it.
Okay.
Where we said to you, what do you want to pay per month for both cars?
Yeah.
It sounds like a daft question, a bit of a salesman kind of question. As long as we get a realistic answer, we can then structure it and go backwards and forwards with what level of cars you can buy.
Absolutely.
The 360 is a good example, because it's an older car. A lot of people will think, oh well, an older car, you can't get residual on that. But again, using the lenders and their understanding that we work with, they know that that car's not going to reduce too much more in value.
Fingers crossed.
As long as we're sensible with it.
Absolutely.
And the mileage that you put on it. But hopefully that car's going to remain fairly static, because you bought it right. And that means that we can actually put a decent residual at the back end to help keep the monthly payments down.
Thank you so much for coming down and taking part in this, guy. I know it's not your traditional area, being on YouTube videos, but your advice and your expertise has been invaluable, I think, and hopefully you guys will agree with that.
Definitely.
And if you are looking to finance a car, or just want to waste Tim's time like I do, head over to the Magnitude website. I'll put that link below. You can get on the calculator, and then if you're half serious, you can give him a call and waste his time.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Perfect. Cheers, mate. Thank you so much.
Cheers. Thanks, Sam.
Now, I'm not saying that I've only been able to afford these cars because of financing. As I touched on at the beginning of this video, hard work, I believe, is an important part of that. And really, it's a huge thanks, and it's really down to you guys and your support. Since doing YouTube, it has enabled me to push forward, to increase my budgets, and to be able to buy incredible cars like this. That is purely down to YouTube, because before, when I was doing my other work, I was stretching myself to get into things like an Audi TTS, a car which I love. Now, somehow, I've stretched myself and managed to get into a Ferrari and a Porsche. It's unbelievable. I love my life. I love my job. As I say, I do personally work as hard as I can at it. I hope you have found this video informative and helpful. As I say, there's some weird stigma around car financing that people don't really talk about it. I think that's such a mistake, because so many of us do it, and more people than you think on YouTube do it. So I feel like it needs to be explained. If you want to ask any further questions, please comment below. I will try and get back to as many of you as possible with my limited understanding of the car financing world. Give the video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it, and make sure you subscribe for plenty more videos to come.